So yes, we paid off $76,000 in debt in 1 year, and you can do the same. And before you flip to the next video thinking that this isn't applicable to you or you can't do something like this, take a second because you might be wrong. In fact, I know you're wrong because I work with 2,100 plus families doing the same thing. And those individuals before working with me felt the same way. So I know who I'm talking about and talking to when I speak about in this video. So we paid off $76,000 in debt in 1 year. You can do the same. And you might have limiting beliefs right now. You might say, well, they must make a lot of money, or that means they didn't live life and they just were hermits. There's no way I could do that. I'm sure there are limiting beliefs, and think about what that is right now in your head. And so when we walk through this, I'm going to explain and basically break down your limiting beliefs so that you're able to take the next step and actually align yourself. So we only made $92,000 as a household income when we started, and we got up to $134,000. We did live life during this time. We did have some sacrifice, of course, during this given year, but we did build an amazing life, and sometimes that sacrifice is required. I know it's crazy in 2025, and there's no way I could do that kind of limiting belief. There is, because like I said, we've worked with 2,100 plus families and counting to do exactly the same thing. So this isn't like abnormal or different, and I'll show you exactly what I'm referring to. So here are some of my students. Like, again, we have tons. If I type in debt, there's 1,000 here. So like, obviously I'm not going to walk through all of these payoffs, but you get my point. So here's one of them right off the first one that pops up is Stacy. She crushed $13,000 in credit card, $8,000 in 401k loan, $8,500 in personal loan, and $2,000 in medical debt. But not only was that paid off, she also gained $1,300 back monthly. Itzel literally paid off her student loans. I mean, Zach paid off $230,000 in 8 months. I'm probably not going to go down the list, but you get my point. You catch my drift. This is extremely doable. And literally, if I just go officially debt free, I mean, I can literally go on and on and on and on with this, but I'm not going to waste your time through 1,000 people. But if you still don't believe you can get debt free or become debt free, please stop watching this video and please continue to be a victim. Now, let's get back to the video. Now that I got you past the limiting beliefs for those that are continuing to watch, let's walk through the framework in order to make this work. So the first thing is your belief. Your belief system drives everything around you. And so most of you think you have to be extremely like disciplined and stuff like that. Like that to a certain extent is reasonable, but this is more about a systematic approach that's going to work for you and your family. And that begins with your belief system. And so if I believe something is X, I'm going to act in accordance with the belief that something is X. And if I continue to do that, my actions and my beliefs and my thoughts are all going to circulate around each other. And so if I never change my belief system, which is a starting point, then nothing else ever changes. And so that's what most people are doing that are listening to this right now, is they don't believe they can become debt free, or they think it's too much, or they've never done an actual logical sequence of what's going on in their situation. So therefore they go down this emotional rabbit hole and they have all these limiting beliefs and they just live in that life their whole life and they never change. This is just like starting with your belief system, which changes who you believe yourself to be as an identity, because we often slap labels on ourselves. Oh, I am a CPA, so I act in accordance with what CPAs do. We do this all the time, good or bad. And so as long as we understand this is how humans operate, we can realign ourselves with the proper identity. When you identify something, you're going to put yourself in a good environment. And when you put yourself in a good environment and add a system, you're going to get results. This is exactly what my students do. Think about this. These are individuals that didn't believe they could be debt free. They didn't believe that they could, invest money. They didn't believe they could become financially free. So the first thing we do is work on their belief system. They work with a behavioral psychologist. They work with our coaches internally to make sure that they believe they can do this. Because if they can't, there's no point of going further, because they're not going to take the proper actions or identify or align themselves with the proper systems and environment in order to get the actual result they want. And so the first thing is belief. Then they start to shift their identity to, oh, I am a millionaire, or I can become a millionaire, which then puts them in an environment like Budgetdog Academy, which is an environment that people become financially free every single day. These individuals have debt. These individuals have to figure out how to invest. They have cash on the sideline. They don't know how to optimize their finances. If that's you, go in the show notes below and book a call with my team right this second, because this is how we get to begin to build a system, which is the next step of the process. And I'm going to show you a little bit of the details of that system high level. And then from that system being in place, you get the result. It's a very simple process, but it is all dependent on the belief system that you have, which is why I challenge your limiting beliefs in the beginning. So if you're still watching this and you're saying something in your head's swirling in your head saying, I can't, or I don't know how, or some negative cognition, identify what that is right now. We got to put that to bed. We got to rewire our belief system, because that's the only way we're going to move forward with this simple belief, identity, environment, systems, results. So once we have that, I'm going to walk through that's the secret, the sauce of how to adjust and change. But we actually want to go through the technical steps. So let's say we work on your belief. Let's say we change your identity. Let's say you're in Budgetdog Academy and you're in a good environment. Now the next step is system, in order to get the final result. So the automated financial system we operate in is very, very simple. It comes down to 3 basic financial statements that are very simple and should be in everybody's situation. Whether or not you use our approach, this is uniform across the United States. This should be in everybody's situation. This is coming from a CPA that's worked with 2,100 people. So the first thing is a balance sheet. A balance sheet is not typically what comes to mind in the very, very beginning. It's typically you jump to budget. Like, that's where you would think. But a balance sheet is the starting point. So this is the purpose of this, is to calculate your net worth. So on the frequency basis, it's once per quarter. So you're not doing a lot of work here. This is probably a 15-minute exercise every quarter, which is every 3 months. So 4 times a year times 15 minutes, you're talking an hour per year. This isn't a technical exercise or a hard thing to do. It's more just to assess where you're at. It's kind of like getting on a scale. It's not a hard thing to do, step on a scale, but it does show you where you're at any given point in time. That's exactly what this is. So all this is calculating, guys, is your assets minus your liability values to figure out what your net worth is. So when people say I'm a millionaire, my net worth is $1 million plus. And so this is an important number because this shows where you're at any given point in time. Now, if I have my balance sheet, I'm going to have my asset values and my liability values. As we're talking about paying off debt, and how we paid off $76,000 of debt, we identified on our balance sheet the liabilities to accumulate to $76,000 of debt. Now, next to that, we figure out interest rate, we figure out timing of these debts, we figure out minimum payment, all that kind of stuff. We know the details of this debt, which I'll get to in a second. But the biggest thing is aligning and figuring out everything you have, and do not leave anything off. I'll give you an example. One of my friends said that, well, my HSA is paying off my medical debt, so therefore, since I don't see it, I'm not going to include it. That's cheating yourself. Add every single debt onto your balance sheet. Don't skip that, right? Once I have all my debts and I have all the details of those debts, I want to talk about my actual goals. So on the balance sheet, I actually list my goals. Specifically, what am I trying to accomplish? What's the goal of my financial picture? Is it to pay off debt? Some of you listening might not have debt, or you might be trying to invest or become financially free. So it doesn't matter what your goals are. List those there. Now, once I have, let's say, my defined goals, and let's say those are debt payoff for the sake of this video, the second document I actually want is an amortization schedule. Again, like I said, I'm not actually talking about the budget quite yet, because this is why people are failing. And this is why you might have failed to this date, is you don't have what I'm talking about right now. If you implement these things, it's a very simple process. But again, it comes up to belief, shifting identity, the environment you're in, because that's the normal stuff that you hear. You know, family talking about broke things. You're with a group of 2,100 other people talking about how to build wealth. You normalize that, and you're the average of the 5 people closest to you. And so it's just basic common sense, right? And now once you have that, you're in building a system that's applicable to just you. It's very specific to you within Budgetdog Academy, where we work with you one-on-one. So the second document is the amortization schedule. And I'm going to show you guys actually the physical document, but right now I'm just showing you the high level. But this is to calculate your debt timeline. So you're going to take all of the debts on the balance sheet in the liability section and transfer those over to the amortization schedule. Each one of these amortization schedules are going to have all of your details of your debt that you have over on the balance sheet. It's going to show you the timeline in which you can pay it off, how much principal you're going to pay, how much interest you're going to pay, and the progress that you make during this debt paydown. When you see that logically for once in your life and stop being emotional about your student loans, you're going to start to realize you can pay this off a lot faster. There are countless students that will walk through this situation over and over and over and say, wow, I really thought I was going to pay off debt in, let's call it 3 years, and it took me 6 months. It's because they finally got out of their emotional brain and they just applied a systematic approach to their finances. It's a very simple process, like I said, but it takes all of these things to line up to actually come to fruition. And so that's a choice that you get to make. Again, you guys can make that choice today and help your family by going in the show notes below and booking a call with my team to join Budgetdog Academy. You do have to make over $100,000 per year as a household, and you do have to have one of the problems I mentioned earlier. You have a debt problem, you have an investing problem, you want to optimize your finances, or you have cash on the sideline and you don't know what to do with it. If you're a hungry individual, you want to change, you know where to go. So the amortization schedule is literally a one-time document. So frequency of this is one time. You're not going to be doing a bunch of stuff here. We're setting this up a one-time thing. Now, the whole goal of this entire system, guys, is to make your financial life easy, to reach all financial goals. So back to the limiting belief of, oh, I have to be really disciplined. It's not necessarily discipline. It's setting up a system to force good behavior and eliminate bad behavior. Think about if I was trying to get in really good shape or lose weight. If my pantry, my environment was full of junk food, what do you think would happen when I get hungry? I'd probably navigate to my pantry, which is very easily accessible, and I would probably eat junk food. And then I probably wouldn't lose weight because my environment is really bad. And maybe my belief or even my identity at that point in time isn't somebody that's fit. Maybe it's somebody that's always overeaten. And so it is important for all of those things to align along with the system. It's not necessarily about discipline. It's about setting yourself up for success. James Clear always talks about in Atomic Habits, one of the best books ever, is that you fall to the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And that's what we talk about quite a bit. So the next thing is, once I have my amortization schedule set with all my debts independently, we'll get to that and I'll show you the document itself. We need a budget, which is obviously what you guys thought probably the whole time you needed. So we need to know the ins and outs. It's not restriction here. It's not, I can't spend money here. What money goes in, what money goes out. It's already happening. Why don't we just track it? Because it's going to happen regardless, and you're going to have the stress regardless unless you figure out where it's going, which then reduces your stress. So this is to calculate your cash flow. The reason we want to calculate our cash flow is because we have to know our cash flow goals that we have listed. So income minus expenses minus savings and investments should equal 0 is the theoretical equation. This should take you no more than 30 minutes a month. If this is taking longer, you don't have a system and you have a manual exercise that is a stressful exercise. Once you have that, once you have everything lined up, the whole goal is to apply our framework to your situation, which is going to be different for everybody. But one of those pieces is the cash flow goal worksheet. So for example, the cash flow goal worksheet right here is very simple and common sense. It's listing the level, all your goals you list on your balance sheet, and it just transfers over here. But we want to get specific. So the first thing we want to know is your cash flow. How much cash flow from your budget that we just calculated do you have per month in order to hit all your goals? Then what we want to do, I'm going to summarize this for you, is list all your goals, list the holding account, list the total account needed, list the number of months needed, do some calculations, have some investing specific assumptions, getting to your monthly cash flow number. We then summarize that, and then we compare that to what's available. Pretty simple, right? Now we know we are either over or under in this situation. So it would say, great work. It looks like you have a great plan because we're $305 under. But let's say, for example, I do $2,000 here. You can see this change. You're close, but let's rework this plan to ensure we have enough cash flow for everything, and we're over $95. We then annualize that, and we know specifically how much that's going to take per year to hit all of our goals. We then go into our budget template and we put those goals into our budget template, and we set up automations for these 3 goals. If we invest $322 into the taxable brokerage for 65 months needed, assuming 8% starting at $25,000, we will hit our goal. There is no question about it. The goal will be exactly what we want to hit. If we need 600, or if we do, save $643 starting with $1,000 balance in a high yield savings account for 14 months, we will hit $10,000. This isn't rocket science. This is exact logic. If we invest $1,600 per month into our Roth IRA and 401k for 240 months, which is 20 years, assuming 8%, starting at $350,000 beginning balance, we will hit $2.5 million. The key is lining this out, understanding the cash flow, and then actually going to put it into practice, because this is the biggest mistake I made early on. Is I did figure some of this stuff out, but it was all jumbled all over the place. There wasn't a systematic approach to it. And so I was trying to remember in my head, and even though I would put, hey, every Wednesday I got to invest in this account or save this money, I would then go manually do all of this. That's where you'll go wrong. So once you set up the system, let's say, for example, you're paying off debt, okay? Let's say we go over to our amortization schedule and we list this debt out. So we have a $50,000 debt. We have a 5.175% interest rate for 10 years. It's a student loan, minimum payment of $534. We go to the very bottom and we realize it takes about 120 months to the penny, right? So let's go up here. Let's say we have an additional fixed monthly principal period, beginning period 1. Let's say we put an extra $1,000. We have extra cash flow. We figured out through the budget, our ins and outs. We have extra $1,000 to put towards this. How much could this save us if we actually set this up? Put $1,000 there, this whole thing just down here, your principal, your interest, everything. And so you get down to 35 months, which is 10 years to 3 years. You save 7 years in 1 month by doing and adjusting for $1,000 per month. But instead of saying, okay, that would be a theoretical situation, I'm going to go into my student loan portal and update the $1,000 to automatically reduce from my account and pay off my student loan's additional principal payment. Now you might right there feel anxious. If you feel anxious, you're like, well, what if I don't have enough money? You're missing the entire point here. Because if you have the rest of the system, you have the budget, you have the balance sheet, you have the amortization schedule, you'll know all your ins and outs to where you will never over withdraw and everything will be systemized for you and you won't do anything and you will never have that worry. One of the biggest things holding people back is the control aspect. But it's not a control aspect of paying off the debt. It's actually misunderstanding finances. So feeling like you're in control, quote unquote, feeling like you're in control by manually doing this versus automating it. The only reason you feel out of control is because you don't have a system that you trust in. When you have a system you trust in and you can see the actual result, you're going to start to get results. So if you were to pay this off, $1,000, it would be paid off in 35 months. There is no guessing. It's exact. And you would end up paying way less in interest. So if I check the interest amount just right here through the 35 months, you're paying, let's call it almost $4,000, $39.97, the sum total. But if I take this $1,000 out and I calculate all of the interest, you'd be paying $14,000 total. So you're saving over $10,000 in interest by making this move. We could go a step further. Let's say you have $2,000 here. We could pay this off in, let's call it 20 months. And again, so on and so forth. You can play with numbers to figure out what makes sense for you. But this is exactly why or how we paid off $76,000 of debt in 1 year and why it works for everybody. This isn't specific to us. This isn't specific to my students. This is specific to anybody that actually applies the system. So when you think, oh, well, I don't have enough money to do this, you'd be amazed. Here's another limiting belief that you have is a 3-month look-back analysis. You would be shocked at how many people, and I'm not going to go through the whole document of what we do and the exact process and details, but let's talk about high level. When you go through a 3-month look back and you see what you've spent and you adjust for that going forward in a very value-based approach, not a cost-cutting approach, my average student finds $24,000 per year, $2,000 per month. The example we just did, we got up to $2,000 per month, which is extra cash flow. That is not what they're saving. That is additional upon what they're saving, and that is an average student. Another average stat, and this is amongst 2,100 families, is that they pay off debt 28 months earlier than anticipated. That is exceptional to say the least. So think about if you came into the academy, you put yourself in the right actual mindset, you started to believe, you worked with a behavioral psychologist and our coaches, you shifted your identity to be somebody that's wealthy for once in your life, you finally added the environment around you, which is Budgetdog Academy, and then you built the system I'm talking about, plus obviously much more. This is a very high level look at this. And then you started getting results. Why not you? I'm going to let you think about that. And if you want to take it to the next level, like I said, show notes below, book a call with my team and take it to the next level. You should not be stressed about money. You should not be overwhelmed by money. The reason you are is because you don't have what I have on the screen. You don't have the right belief. You don't have the right identity. You don't have the right environment. You don't have the right systems. This is your answer. There is no other way to slice and dice it. The answer is right here. It is on you to take that next step. I'm not going to force it, but I did pay off $76,000 of debt in 1 year. And my students are doing this every single day. So I'll leave it with you and I'll see you next week.